Hi everybody, welcome to my live cast this morning. I'm Ezra, cannabis consultant. You can find me on EzraHelps.com. I'm going to talk about pets today. This is my dog Paloma. We're going to talk about cannabis dosing, how to think about and talk to your vet and address using cannabis, medical cannabis that we would for humans, with pets. And it's something that I haven't done a lot of just with clients, but if you've ever come to me for a session, you'll meet my dog, because I bring my dog and have my dog in my office here when I see clients, and even pet owners when we're working with ailments for pets. So first, I just want to, let me hang up my notes here. I'll be right back if anybody's watching. There we go, just had to hang those up. I have some notes in the back there. So pets are very emotional for us. When our pets are sick, it's very hard for us. So I first want to just say that I never want to defy doctors or veterinarians. It's really important that they are on board and that they understand cannabis and how to use cannabis as medicine, and that they understand that my goal as a cannabis practitioner or as a cannabis consultant who helps people understand how to use cannabis is that we want to reduce symptoms, we want to increase quality of life, and we want to reduce medications that might be harmful. So opiates are given to pets. Drugs are given to pets that can be quite harsh for them. And so if we can have a more non-toxic first line of defense or reduction of meds using cannabis, then that would be my goal. And dogs are also, and pets are really part of the healing exchange that happens. If we can be connected to our pet's healing and understand what our pet is going through in terms of an ailment or a symptom, then it brings us closer to them. So if we're just relying on our veterinarian to solve all of our pet's problems, then that disconnects our connection to their healing. And cannabis is really a way that you can work with your pet, try and find ways to heal your pet with, hold on, I'm just going to add some, clicking add to these people. All right, so if you have any questions too, as I'm talking, feel free to put them in the questions in the box below there. So first of all, animals are the heroes of the cannabis world, because they have done all the testing, all the research testing, all the doctors and scientists and researchers who've tested cannabis first have to use rats and monkeys and everything. Famously, it was rhesus monkeys in Israel that were tested with THC, and they delivered huge amounts of THC to rhesus monkeys to determine the amount of THC, the active ingredient in cannabis, that could go into an animal that would cause a fatality. They wanted to see what the LD50 is. This is the toxic amount, the fatal amount of cannabis. Well, they were never actually able to kill these rhesus monkeys. They made them very uncomfortable. And that's the most dangerous thing that can happen with a pet, is that you can make a pet very uncomfortable and unable to drink water. They can get dehydrated. So if you're delivering a huge amount of THC to a pet, that is something you have to be careful with. I would never suggest that you deliver huge amounts of THC. The key with THC and CBD is to deliver the right amount so that the pet has a reduction of symptoms and is not put out or completely unable to walk, etc. So the first step, if you are a pet owner and you want to explore using cannabis, I would first talk to your vet, because often vets are tuned into things like CBD, cannabidiol, for using it with pets. And CBD is the most conservative approach, right? You can deliver CBD to a pet. That pet isn't going to have a psychoactive experience. You can deliver enough that they can get quite sedated. But using CBD is really about that smallest dose first, starting with a drop. And CBD often comes in an oil form. If you take an oil and just drop it on the pet's kibble, you can start with a very tiny dose, 1 milligram, for example. And you can even take something like a bacon grease or an oil from cooking that is attractive to the pet and mix it in with that oil, and the pet can take the oil there. I don't like edibles. I don't like edibles so much for humans or pets unless you really know what you're doing, because when we have edibles around, humans and pets tend to overeat them. If they're delicious edibles, if a dog gets into something like a pot brownie, then you can deliver too much THC. So if we keep it in its natural form, keep cannabis, CBD and THC in its oil form, that's how I sell CBD, then the pet is more likely to get the appropriate dose. Just going to pause here. I'm going to add somebody else here who wants to connect with the live cast. But I also recommend that people go to a consultant to actually, if you're in a state where you can go into a dispensary and get cannabis products, that you really learn who that person is who's giving you the product, and you work with that person. That's what I do, is I am somebody you can reach out to continually to learn about what your pet or what your human patient is in need of in terms of using cannabinoids. They are very elusive. It's very challenging to work with cannabinoids. You're working with a lot of things like the consciousness of the person or the pet. You have to, as a pet owner, you have to observe what your pet is experiencing. For my pet Paloma here, she had surgery when she was a puppy, and we went through all the proper protocols where we went to the vet. They put her out, she had surgery, we brought her back home, and we were given a bottle of prescription opiates. And I went through the protocol. I'm very conservative. I always believe that the practitioner, the doctor, the veterinarian is doing the right thing, but I knew that I wanted to reduce those opiates as much as possible. So at the end of that surgery, when I knew that she was recovering, she was doing okay, she just had some dermatitis or skin lesions that were removed, so it was not a serious surgery. At the end of that, I gave her some small dosing of a THC tincture so that I could reduce the amount of opiates that she was taking at the end of her surgery. So that was a conservative approach. I've also had clients who come in with dogs who have things like arthritis. At the end of their life, it's very difficult, if they're very old, to be giving a dog tons of medication for things like arthritis. The dog might not be active or responding to that medication very well. So CBD is something that you can introduce gradually into the mix, and do a course of CBD. So CBD is one of those things where I suggest that people start with a single milligram of CBD and do it every day for 5 days and see if you can observe the results over time. This would be increased mobility with your dog, better sleeping habits, things if the dog has anxiety or the pet has anxiety. CBD is a natural anxiolytic, and the cannabinoids go into the system, into the dog's or the pet's endocannabinoid system, just like they would with humans. So you can actually reduce the intensity of that nervous system in the dog by introducing CBD. Also, opiates can cause, and some of the harsher pharmaceutical medications for pets can cause unwanted side effects like constipation and anxiety and sleeplessness. So when we're using things like cannabinoids, connecting with our pet, we understand, and we're working with somebody who's a practitioner of cannabis, who understands the product, understands how to use it, is familiar with the people, and you can get the whole team on board to attain that goal. The goal being reducing symptoms, reducing unwanted medication, and increasing quality of life. That's what we're trying to do with our pet. So reach out to me at ezrahelps.com or ask a question in the Facebook group here. If you have any questions about pets or people who want to explore medical marijuana, medical cannabis, or CBD, the even more conservative form of the drug. If you have pets, always consult with your veterinarian, with your physician. I think if the whole team, if nurses and doctors and vets can all be on board and really work together and be informed about the wide spectrum of ways to approach health, then we can use conventional veterinarian medicine, and we can also use cannabis as medicine. So thanks for joining the live cast. I'll try and get to these questions if there are any. And thanks so much for joining.